Hey everyone, it's Amanda. Welcome back to my channel. It's finally time for a new episode of Stationery Showdown where we compare different stationery products to see which one comes out on top. Today's battle is between the ever popular brush pens. Brush pens are some of my personal favorite stationery products, and I know that it's the same case for some of you guys because this was definitely the top suggestion. With the recent popularity increase of calligraphy and brush lettering, I feel like there's so many options and companies out there who are coming out with their own brush pens. So today we're going to find out which one comes out on top and which one is my personal favorite. Before we get right into this video, I'd like to thank this week's sponsor, Wix. Wix is an online website building platform that I actually used to build my own website. It was great because I had zero idea about web design, but it was so intuitive. I was able to be really creative with the website and customize it to my own liking, and it ended up looking professional and beautiful as well. Wix has a variety of different features and templates available depending on your needs. There's Wix bookings, Wix Pro Gallery, Wix videos, as well as a bunch of other specialized verticals like e-commerce, restaurants, events, and music. Another plus is that anything you might need like custom domains, mailboxes, or email newsletters is all covered by Wix, so you really can't ask for anything more. I've been loving it. It's been so awesome using Wix. So if you want to try out Wix for yourself, be sure to click the link in the description box below. Alright, so with that being said, let's test out these brush pens and get right into this stationery showdown. Alright, so the brush pens that are battling it out today are the Tombow Fudenosuke brush pens, both the hard tip and the soft, the Tombow Dual brush pens, the Sakura Koi, Sakura Pigma, Pentel, Food Touch, Zig Brushables, Zig Clean Color, Kuretake Pocket Brush, FaberCastell, the Ecoline, as well as the Artline Stix. So as you can see, we are going to be going through quite a lot of them. In terms of the rubric that we're going to be scoring these brush pens on, there are a couple things we're looking at. We're looking at the size of the brush tip, the flexibility of the brush tip, which in turn affects the control and ease of use. We're also going to be talking about the color selection available, as well as the bleeding and ghosting, of course. So let's jump right in with the Tombow Fudenosuke brush pens. These come in both hard tip and soft, and they're very similar, but the difference is that the hard tip, which is what you're seeing right now, is a plastic nib, and the brush tip is more of a felt tip brush-like pen. I'm showing you guys real-time clips of me using all of these brush pens so you can kind of see what they're like when they're put to use. In terms of the Tombow Fudenosukes, I personally prefer the hard-tipped just because I really like the rigid plastic end. I find that it allows me to have a great amount of control when I'm doing the lettering, but the soft tip is just as good as well. I just find that because the tip is slightly more flexible, the lettering comes out a bit larger, and if I am grabbing the Tombow Fudenosuke, I'm probably wanting a smaller letter, so that's why I would typically go for the hard tipped over the soft tip. But again, in general, these two are both amazing, and if you are bullet journaling or wanting something where you do want smaller letters, these are good options. The only thing that sucks is that they only come in two colors, black and gray. I do really wish they came in other colors because I would totally buy every single one of them. But speaking of a large color selection, that brings us to the Tombow Dual brush pens. These have been very popular, and for good reason. These are obviously larger than the Tombow Fudenosuke, so you're going to be getting a larger letter. The tip is slightly more flexible, but you still have a really nice control and ease of use with these. I find that you don't have to be very careful with the steadiness of your hand and whatnot. They're a very good beginner brush pen. Next up, we have the Sakura Koi brush pens, and although these look small, the lettering actually comes out quite large, probably one of the largest out of all of these brush pens. Brush tip is a bit more flexible than the Tombow Dual brush pens, which means that there is slightly less control. I find that when I use these, I have to be very careful to be very light-handed on the upstroke, or else it'll just all end up looking extremely thick. The good thing though is that these come in a rainbow of colors, and the colors are very vibrant. Next, we are talking about the Sakura Pigma brush pens. These have been a new find of mine. They actually come in 3 different thicknesses: FB, MB, and BB, which stands for fine brush, medium brush, and big brush. And they only come in black, but they're meant to be very pigmented black brush pens. It's interesting because I find that all 3 of the pens are very different. The smallest brush, the FB, I find very similar to the Tombow Fudenosuke soft tip, so you do get a smaller letter and a really nice ease of use and control. The medium brush is very similar to the Sakura Koi, and then the big brush is extremely flexible, really hard to control, so that one's not my favorite, but overall I really do find a lot of use out of the FB and the MB. I think they come in a pack all together though. All three of them are felt tip, by the way, in case you were curious. Next up, we're talking about the Pentel Fude Touch brush pen. This is, again, another one of these small calligraphy brushes. A lot of people have compared it to the Tombow Fudenosuke. They are pretty similar, but there are slight differences. I mean, I think it would be the most similar to the soft tip Fudenosuke, if anything, but the tip is slightly more flexible. But for some reason, I don't find that an issue with this one. I still have a great amount of control and I'm able to get the lines that I want right off the bat. The Zig Brushables are interesting because they are actually dual-ended, so you get two colors in one brush pen, which is awesome. And I actually find that these are very similar to the Tombow Dual brush pens. There's another one that's also similar, but I'll talk about that a bit later. I find that they have the perfect amount of flexibility, yet still being a bit rigid so that you're able to get the control of the lines. Something that is unique to this pen and the Tombow Dual brush pen that I actually really enjoy is that the ink is slightly translucent, so when you write, as you can see in the test, you can kind of tell that when you press down harder, the ink is slightly darker and more vibrant, so it gives you a nice hand brushed ombre effect almost that I found doesn't really happen with the other brush pens. Next, we're talking about the Zig Clean color. Now this is probably the most different out of all of the brush pen because it is not a felt tip, it is actually a brush. So there's different hairs that combine to create a little brush, but because of that, it is a very flexible pen and it is hard to control. I'm not sure if I'm using it incorrectly, but the lines become very wavy. It's hard to create the thickness of line that you really want, and I don't know. I need to test it out more. Maybe I'm using it wrong. It does come in a variety of different colors, and I like the idea of it being a real brush, but I'm still undecided. The Kuretake Fudebiyori, I think it's also called the pocket brush pen, is another one that is very similar to the Tombow Dual brush pen and the Zig Brushables. I really like how it is the perfect mix of rigid yet flexible, and the ease of use and the control is really there. And actually what I really like about these is that they are slightly smaller than the Tombow Dual brush pens, so you kind of get a medium-sized letter with these. And they come in so many different colors, and they also come in metallics, which are my favorite because the metallics look so beautiful. Alright, so FaberCastell Pitt brush pens. Now these ones are interesting. I don't know if you can tell by the clip, but the actual tip of the brush pen is longer in terms of the proportions. It's not as cone shaped. So this does mean that it is a bit more flexible than the other ones. Even though the tip is a bit more flexible, there is kind of a bounce back to it. I don't know if that makes sense the way I'm describing it, but because of this bounce back, I find that the flexibility of the tip doesn't really affect the control. It's still relatively easy to use once you get used to it, and it does come in a variety of different colors as well. Now we have the Ecoline brush pen. Something noticeable about this right off the bat is that it is one of the largest brush pens out of all of them. The tip is really wide and the ink is extremely wet. I would say it's almost like a paint. You can kind of see when I'm doing the test writing, pools up when you press hard, which gives it a cool painterly ombre effect, but it also means that it bleeds a bit easier. They come in so many beautiful bright colors, which is what I love, but the control does take some getting used to. I think that these would be more ideal for extremely large lettering, like maybe if you're doing a poster or something. And finally, we're talking about the Artline Stix. As you can see, there's a bit of a texture on the outside of the pen, and that's because you can kind of snap all of the pens and colors together like Lego. This brush pen is really unique because it is probably the most marker-like out of all of them. The tip doesn't really bend down like most of the other brush pens, so you really have to rely on being light-handed on the upstrokes and heavy-handed on the downstrokes. And since it is a bit wider, it's harder to get that thin upstroke. Here, I just wanted to do a test out of all of them so you can kind of see a comparison in terms of size, and we're going to do a little flip over so you can see the ghosting and bleeding situation. If you're curious about size, I would say that the two smallest would have to be the Tombow Fudenosuke as well as the Pentel Fude Touch, and then the two largest would have to be the Sakura Koi and the Ecoline brush pen. Obviously, I don't own every single color of these brush pens, sadly. I would have loved to swatch all of them for you, but I decided to just stick to one color, and hopefully this still gives you kind of an idea in terms of the actual brush pen, and the colors, you know, are kind of secondary. Anyways, flipping over, as you can see, there's not really too much bleed out of any of the brush pens, but that also could be a result of the notebook I'm using. I would say the one that was the most notable was the Ecoline. As I mentioned, it was the inkiest, so that's not really a surprise. It's time for what you've all been waiting for, the winners of this showdown. This battle especially was extremely difficult just because every single brush pen would be good for different uses, so please keep that in mind. But just in terms of general use, I would say my favorite for small lettering would have to be the Tombow Fudenosuke's. No surprise there. Specifically the hard tip one, I think that one is definitely one that I would grab the most out of. I just love how easy it is to control, and the lettering that you get out of it is beautiful. My winner for the medium-sized category would have to be the Kuretake Fudebiyori pocket brush pen. I still don't know the exact name of these, but I just really like the way my lettering always turns out whenever I use these. It's very clean, easy to use, and easy to control, and that was something that I really took into account, is just how my lettering turns out when I use the brush pen. And then, no surprise here, my winner for the large brush pen category is the Tombow Dual brush pens. There's a reason why these are so well loved in the community. There's no comparing in terms of the color selection and the quality of these brush pens, and I just really love how versatile they are. It does come with another end, I forgot to mention that, a fine tipped end at the other side, so you're really able to get the biggest bang for your buck with these brush pens. Alright everyone, so that was the battle of the brush pens. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Stationery Showdown. I hope you enjoyed it or found it helpful. Thank you again so much to Wix for sponsoring this video and supporting the channel. I'm actually going to be posting the results of this brush pen showdown over on my website, so if you want to read the breakdown, you can go do that. And if you want to try out Wix for yourself and create your own website, be sure to click that link in the description box below. But other than that, I think that's pretty much it. Keep doodling, and I will talk to you in my next video. Bye everyone!